Today, we are going to take a look at one of the worst serial killer in America, the Green River Killer. Before we go through, who is Green River Killer? He is Gary Leon Ridgway, the man who was convicted of 48 murder between the early 1980s to the late 1990s. So let's take a look at his early life. This man was born on 18th of February 1949 in Salt Lake City, Utah. He was the second of Mary and Thomas Ridgway, 3 sons. He was said to have troubled childhood, as his relatives state, that he have witnessed multiple violent argument between his parents. Ridgway had a problem of wetting himself until he was 13, and his mother would wash his genitals after every episode because of this. He later told defense psychologists that, as an adolescent, he had conflicting feelings of anger and sexual attraction toward his mother and fantasized about killing her. This guy graduated from Thai High School in 1969 and married his 19-year-old high school girlfriend, Claudia Craig, although end within the years as he was caught having an affair after he contracted gonorrhea after frequent intercourse with sex workers in Vietnam, as he was sent there when he joined the Navy. According to women in his life, Ridgway had an insatiable sexual appetite. His 3 ex-wives and several ex-girlfriends reported that he demanded sex from them several times a day. Often, he would want to have sex in a public area or in the woods. Ridgway himself admitted to having a fixation with sex workers, with whom he had a love-hate relationship. He frequently complained about their presence in his neighborhood, but he also took advantage of their services regularly. In a statement read at his plea hearing, Gary Ridgway said he hated prostitutes and didn't want to pay them for sex. Some have speculated that Ridgway was torn between his lusts and his staunch religious beliefs. Throughout his terror, it is believed that he has murdered at least 71 underage girls and women near Seattle and Tacoma, Washington. He later reported that he had killed so much that he lost count.
You took the lives of 48 women. You snuffed them out. More than 48 women.
71, yes.
Right. You killed them all, Ridgway. You killed them all.
Mm-hmm.
Most of his victims were alleged sex workers and other women, which in vulnerable circumstances, such as underage runaways, whom he pick up along Pacific Highway, south. To gain trust and trick the victim, Ridgway would sometimes show his son picture. They then would engage in sexual activity, and minuted from behind, Ridgway would strangle them, either by hands or ligatures.
When I got through having a climax with her, I jumped on her.
Within South King City. He also have knack of necrophilia, as he will return to have intercourse with them, but according to him, the reason being is to reduce his need to obtain a living victim. In the early 1980s, the King County Sheriff Office formed the Green River Task Force to investigate the murders. Task Force members included Robert Keppel and Dave Reichert, who periodically interviewed incarcerated serial killer Ted Bundy in 1984.
Well, first of all, he's trying to dispose of the bodies where they won't be found. This guy doesn't want to get caught. I think it's clear that over time, you can see him, at least it would appear, that over time he's trying to improve his dump sites. He's trying to get better at disposing of his bodies.
Bundy was killing in the same area, the Pacific Northwest. He had enough knowledge about the areas to give advice, and he actually did give sensible advice because he knew the kind of framework that Gary Ridgway was working in. It takes one to know one almost, and he was very good at doing that.
He became a suspect in the Green River killings in 1983. On April 7, 1987, police took hair and saliva samples from Ridgway. Around 1985, Ridgway began dating Judith Mawson, who became his 3rd wife in 1988. Mawson claimed in a 2010 television interview, she described how he would leave for work early in the morning some days, ostensibly for the overtime pay. Mawson speculated that he must have committed some of the murders while supposedly working these early morning shifts. She claimed that she had not suspected Ridgway's crimes before she was contacted by authorities in 1987 and had not even heard of the Green River Killer before that time because she did not watch the news. Author Penny Moorhead interviewed Ridgway in prison, and he said while he was in the relationship with Mawson, his kill rate went down, and that he truly loved her. Of his 49 known victims, only 3 were killed after he married Mawson. On November 30th, 2001, Ridgway was at the Kenworth truck factory where he worked as a spray painter when police arrived to arrest him. Ridgway was arrested on suspicion of murdering 4 women nearly 20 years earlier after first being identified as a potential suspect, when DNA evidence conclusively linked semen left in the victims to the saliva swab taken by the police. The 4 victims named in the original indictment were Marcia Chapman, Opal Mills, Cynthia Hines, and Carol Ann Christensen. Other news reports stated that his lawyers, led by Anthony Savage, were closing a plea bargain that would spare him the death penalty in return for his confession to a number of the Green River murders.
To the charge of aggravated murder in the first degree as charged in count 1.
Guilty.
In 2003, Gary Ridgway made his plea to the 48 charges of murder that investigators could conclusively tie him to.
How do you plead to the charge of aggravated murder in the first degree as charged in count 5?
Guilty.
That would spare him execution in exchange for his cooperation in locating the remains of his victims.
Right in here's where I killed her. Right here.
How far in?
20 feet.
On December 18, 2003, King County Superior Court Judge Richard Jones sentenced Ridgway to 48 life sentences, without the possibility of parole to be served consecutively. He was also sentenced to an additional 10 years for tampering with evidence for each of the 48 victims, adding 480 years to his 48 life sentences. Later, Ridgway led prosecutors to 3 bodies in 2003. On August 16th of that year, the remains of a 16-year-old girl found near Enumclaw, Washington, 40 feet from State Route 410, were pronounced as belonging to Pammy Annette Avent, who had been believed to be a victim of the Green River Killer. Ridgway confessed to more confirmed murders than any other American serial killer. In another taped interview with Reichert on December 31, 2003, Ridgway claimed to have murdered 71 victims and confessed to having had sex with them before killing them, a detail which he did not reveal until after his sentencing.
You took the lives of 48 women. You snuffed them out. More than 48 women.
71, yes.
Right. You killed them all, Ridgway. You killed them all.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody asked me how he got the way he is. Where did he come from? And I said, he's not from outer space. He didn't come from Mars. He came from right here in our community. And that's the scary part. Right here in our neighborhood, this little boy grew up to become one of the most notorious killers, not only in this country, but I think in this world.
In the end, Ridgway was placed in solitary confinement at Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla in January 2004. This incident affected almost everyone, especially the family of the victim.
You have held us in bondage for all these years because we have hated you. We wanted to see you die. But it's all going to be over now. And that is providing we can forgive you.
He's an animal. I don't wish for him to die. I wish for him to have a long, suffering, cruel death. I know he feels no remorse. His beady little evil eyes would like to probably choke everyone that's been up here, but you won't have that opportunity this time.
You've made it difficult to live up to what I believe, and that is what God says to do, and that's to forgive. And he doesn't say to forgive just certain people. He says to forgive all. So you are forgiven, sir.
You're a loser, you're a coward, you're a nobody, you're an animal. I'm angry, I will always be angry. I will never have that closure. I will never have my sister back in my life. You broke my family apart for 20 years. I hope you rot in hell, son of a bitch.
And then it was over. And we had always imagined this huge party, people, popping champagne corks and all kinds of things, but It was really just kind of a small gathering of people and congratulatory kind of job well done. And everybody now has moved on.
I hope after all this year the old wound will finally heal. Thanks for watching. Later time then.